Lows of 8 to 11 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Football Show on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. Join the Save Our Shirt movement today. More at saveourshirt.co.uk.
I'm prepared to do anything I can to play for my country again.
Do it then. What about your start to the game?
It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
Yeah, it is the Football Show. It's Tuesday night. We're 2 nights away from the massive game between Ireland and Switzerland, which presently we're going to discuss with Daniel McDonnell, who is in studio with me here. Later on in the show, we're going to have Stuey Byrne in, who is going to talk about a big move for Stephen O'Donnell, his first managerial appointment at St. Patrick's Athletic. And Stewie will have some interesting views on that as well, and I guess the trend towards young managers in football and in the League of Ireland in general. Before all of that, though, we have the little matter of the Swiss coming to Dublin on Thursday. Today there was a press conference in Abbottstown. Daniel, you were there. It looked like there was a lively enough press conference, actually, and been a lot of absentees from the squad actually in the last few days as well.
Well, yeah, I guess so. I mean, I don't know. I think the build-up, to be honest, has been pretty quiet, you know. And I would have mentioned it in the piece in the Indo yesterday that, like, you know, there is a piece on this. There is a game on this week, you know, and it's sort of maybe it's just the All Ireland and the aftermath of that, and probably even the rugby squad and a lot of other things maybe have happened in the sporting world that you sort of forget that there's a game which could have a really decisive say in Ireland's prospects of being involved in Euro 2020 taking place on Thursday. I mean, players are missing, but
You had a piece saying the 21s game was garnering a lot of headlines.
Well, it's probably garnered much excitement in the build-up. I mean, I think that changes as Thursday gets closer. There's still going to be a good crowd there, and I think when you're in the stadium at 7 o'clock, you know, 7:15, I think people realise, yeah, this is big. And maybe even tomorrow, you know, you'll have it's one day out and you'll have the proper stuff building up to the game. But I don't know. I think it's been a bit flat, to be honest.
What was the press conference like today?
Well, today was just player stuff. I mean, today was just player stuff with Jeff Hendrick and David McGoldrick. So, like, pretty uneventful, to be truthful. You know, yesterday you had Mick McCarthy. I mean, you mentioned absentees. I mean, players that were ruled out over the weekend, Matt Doherty probably wouldn't have started. In fact, nearly certainly wouldn't have started. Sean Maguire probably the same chance of playing, definitely. Kieran Westwood wasn't going to be involved. James McCarthy, again, he's not here because he wasn't going to be involved. So in terms of actually preparation for the game, it's sort of been, you know, trouble-free-ish. You know, he's made the decision to leave Shane Long out of his squad, but I think okay, Robbie Brady's the one that's carried an injury, and maybe if he was fully fit, he'd be giving him a problem. But I think he's probably going to end up picking the 11 that he would want to pick. And actually, it's Switzerland who are in a bit more of a state of unrest in the build-up with Shaqiri, Xherdan Shaqiri deciding he doesn't want to play international football anymore, or for now anyway, at 27. So that presents its own problems.
Just on that, actually, how much of a boost is that for us in terms of the possible connotations for the well-being in their squad that, well, he doesn't even want to play for us, and he's such a good player as well?
Yeah, no, it's big. You know, he didn't play in the 3-3 against Denmark in March, so I mean, there is at least there's research there that can be done in terms of how they coped without him. But he has been, like, when you looked at their original options, I mean, although he's only 27, he was their most capped midfielder and attacker, and also their top scoring player that was available to them on the squad. So he has been a sort of a talismanic figure for Switzerland. There's no denying that. And I know, as Mick McCarthy sort of said yesterday, like, it's sometimes hard to prepare to play against someone like him because he can do things off the cuff and make things happen out of nothing, whereas it's possible, you know, these are sort of famous last words that don't come back and haunt you, but it's possible that, you know, his replacements, whoever it may be, that they might be able to do their homework and find them a bit more predictable or easier to read, whereas Shaqiri just has that ability. As people know, he's sort of an enigmatic type of fella that, you know, he can be pretty poor some days too, but on other days, you know, he can produce some magic. Now, it would have been interesting because Glenn Whelan would have been with Shaqiri at Stoke, and Glenn Whelan is probably the stopper of choice for Mick McCarthy in terms of his midfield. And Shaqiri at Stoke, you kind of remember, like, he wasn't exactly like a roaring success there, and it was a bit of a surprise when Liverpool
and he was very inconsistent.
Took a punt on him. So I think maybe Whelan would have experienced Shaqiri on his ropier days, and might in a way have had an idea how to try and unsettle him a small bit, but it's redundant now, and ultimately it is still. I think David McGoldrick just pretty much dropped the guard today and said, you know, he buzzing when he heard the news that Shaqiri was out. You know,
we shouldn't have said that.
Possibly not. No.
Switzerland have been one of the top teams in Europe for a long time, not winning things, but always at the competitions, always doing well in them. The manager has been there a while. They have a good system, the way they play, and they have good players within that system playing for good clubs. So said Mick McCarthy. Yeah,
I was wondering. I mean, there's no doubt that. I think Aidan Fitzmaurice did a piece today mentioned this, that we probably underestimated Switzerland consistently over the years. I mean, when
they've been very annoying to play against.
Switzerland play against Ireland in a competitive match, pretty much bad things happen.
My memory goes back to Brian Kerr's last game, which was a generally horrible night when they just frustrated us.
Brian Kerr and Mick McCarthy's last games were both at home to Switzerland in the space of 3 years, and also. Brian Kerr, like the last game, the game that sort of ended Ireland's hopes of qualifying for Euro 2004, when it was the reverse of the fixture that McCarthy finished up with in Dublin. It was in Switzerland where the dream died. Now it was always a fading hope, but Kerr had a mini revival, and then it was killed by Switzerland. And then with Kerr, it finished against Switzerland. But even go back in time, I think Owen Hand's final campaign, Switzerland were on the premises, and I think you go back to 76 where Ireland missed out, I think, on the Euros by a point, and they lost the game to Switzerland too. So as much as Ireland, I think, record in friendlies against Switzerland is actually very good, in games that matter, Switzerland always gets better. And even if the historical stuff is irrelevant, the more contemporary statistics that are mentioned there, I mean, they're consistently in or around the top 10 in the world. They're consistently qualifying for tournaments. They are maybe not a team that maybe have this flashy reputation, although they actually have some decent players playing at good clubs as well, and they're probably a technical side more so than you might imagine. You think functional, I think, when you think of Swiss, just probably because of the clocks. You know,
or their neutrality.
Their general neutrality, to be honest, is something that. But actually, they can be a bit more flamboyant in terms of their football on occasion.
Yeah, fascinating. I think comparison between Mick McCarthy and what you might hear from his replacement Stephen Kenny, because Mick McCarthy said he'd settle for a draw. I can't see Stephen Kenny ever saying that, particularly at home to Switzerland. But McCarthy's nothing if not honest, I think, in these press conferences. And even though we're playing a team that's, they're not world beaters, we're playing them at home. He's like, I'd probably take a draw, because it would mean 11 points after 5 games.
Yeah, and listen, it depends how much stock you place in words. And
you think he's playing the Swiss a bit?
He did say I'll take a draw, but he said we're going out to win the game. He just answers it in a blunt way. I'd say if Stephen Kenny was in the job and ended up with a draw against Switzerland at home, he wouldn't be unhappy. I don't think he'd be disappointed at all if that was the context, if you were in this position in the group. But there does at the same time come a point in this group where Ireland still need to win a game. You can't draw your way to the finals.
And
if you draw your way,
could finish third.
Third is irrelevant. Third, you're done.
Could we finish second, drawing our games?
You can finish second drawing your games if you beat Georgia in every game, and you need Switzerland or Denmark to drop points against Georgia somewhere, and so far they haven't done that. So you can get involved in head-to-heads and point difference and goal difference and all the permutations, but I think realistically you're going to have to produce a big win somewhere to do it. Otherwise you're being madly fortunate to get there, and Ireland haven't qualified for a tournament in recent memory without doing that, be it the Germany game in 2005. Actually the one campaign with Trapp, maybe en route to 2011 or 2012 where they got Estonia in the playoff, that there was no big wins in that campaign as such, and maybe the things fell their way a small bit, but beyond that, you have to win games at home in Dublin against your rivals at some stage. But a draw is not like doom and gloom end of the world, but it just means that Ireland next month in October, they play Georgia away and they play Switzerland away, and they need wins. They need wins somewhere. Okay, maybe you can just leave it all to Denmark the last day of the group and just put it all on that. That could be what happens. But I think somewhere along the way you just got to do the job at home.
McCarthy obviously puts a lot of stock in players playing regularly for their clubs. How happy is he with the team he'll pick in terms of, you've some players getting sort of League Cup action, maybe not playing regularly in the league, but is he happy enough in terms of the vibes he's given at those press conferences?
Well, I don't know.
A lot of Sheffield United players, obviously.
We have a lot of Sheffield United players. They're in good heart. They're all playing. Like Jeff Hendrick was one who was speaking today, and of course, he's going to come out and say he feels fine. He's not going to come out and say, "I feel an absolute rag order." To be honest, I haven't played. But these September games can be funny. You can't. It is early in the season. Jeff Hendrick made the point he played loads of games in pre-season, and that's. That's fine, but I don't think McCarthy really places any value in that. But he seems to think he's naturally fit. Some players are more naturally fit than others. That's just the way it goes. Some lads don't need big pre-seasons to get sharp. Some players do. He clearly feels that someone like Shane Long is of no use to him right now because he hasn't played enough football, and probably feels that his sharpness will be affected by that. Whereas someone like Hendrick, who's probably in a reasonable condition, he's not sort of fearful about the impact.
Are we going to get overrun in midfield in general, like we have so often in the past?
Well, I don't know. I think you're going to.
Den Whelan sitting with
Hendrick and Harahan probably.
Who are the two wingers?
You've got your sort of your sort of downbeat sort of demeanour and face on it.
You don't seem to be that positive.
Well, I'm positive. But you're asking questions there, I don't know, delivering sort of queries about a funeral. You didn't think the performance against Georgia was that good. You slated it at the time.
We had 2 shots on target at home to Georgia.
So you didn't think it was that good?
I thought it was okay. I hope to have higher standards. I think with Mick, he has the players that he has. He has to try and get us through the group. And we were outplayed against Denmark, but we fought and we got a draw. I can't see us winning this game, but we might get a draw. It's just where the goal is going to come from.
Yeah, and I think what we're going to hear,
set pieces maybe.
Well, the set pieces has been the way that Ireland have scored, with the exception of the games against Gibraltar, and Switzerland have conceded a couple from that route. But you can't just wing it and get overrun in general play. The performance against Georgia was quite good, to be honest. I didn't.
The background of where we come from.
I didn't agree with your negativity at the time. I think it was a bit more positive. It maybe wasn't pretty, but I think it was positive. It was a difference. Well, no, it's not that. It's that the game, they did try and play the game in the opposition half, as opposed to letting Georgia have the ball, which is what Ireland have done previously in against Georgia. So
I guess my question is, what form are our midfielders in general at club level to be able to kind of put up a performance here? Or will it be a question of kind of restrictive game to try to contain Switzerland and maybe hit them at set pieces?
I don't know if it's going to be restrictive, but if they're not good enough to keep hold of the ball, then they're not good enough to keep hold of the ball. But I think if it's Whelan, Hendrick, Harahan, which I think it will be, against Georgia, what those two, Hendrick and Harahan, did do is get forward and actually, rather than times in the past where you can name those players and they're chasing shadows or sat in the Ireland half, they did try and get on and be positive in terms of how they played. And if it is Callum Robinson on the right side, say, and
you expect Robinson
McLean,
to play?
I would have thought so. And McLean on the left, well, they're at least, they're probably their natural instincts is to be attacking. Whether they're good enough to keep hold of the ball, that's the perennial problem.
He had interesting words on McLean, actually. I think he said he was a better player than he thought he was.
But managers, managers always take to McLean. It can't be a coincidence. A lot of people have their opinions about McLean, about his limitations, about, he's not someone who would necessarily wow you with his tricks or his skills, and he can sometimes be so dogged in his style. I understand that, and there's games where he's frustrating, but every manager picks him. Every manager that he works with, I can't think of too many times where he's been out in a team. I think early in Sunderland was after the brilliant early days in Sunderland. Otherwise, he's gone even to Wigan, West Brom, various places. People haven't necessarily been chuffed to see him sign, and then he always seems to get himself into the side. It's because he's a brilliant trainer, a brilliant attitude, and I think McCarthy thinks that his team needs that energy and aggression, and he'll provide it. And I know that there's people out there who probably think of, not having him. Well,
if Callum O'Dowd is definitely good enough to play in that team, but his season's been checkered, to say the least.
It has, yeah. Now, he did play at the weekend, and he actually played a bit on the left side. He made a goal from the left side against Bristol City, and he's a good alternative. And Ronan Curtis is probably someone that is in the squad as well. And I think McCarthy thinks that Alan Judge would be his creative go-to option if the team were in trouble. I'm pretty much certain that would be his opinion of it. And if he was to be really positive, he'd start someone like Judge. It might be more likely that he brings him off the bench. But I think he likes that balance, and he likes that energy that McLean will bring, come what may. Like, he doesn't want to control his aggression. I think
harness it.
He wants that attribute to run through the team, and that's what you're going to see. I think you will see an aggressive display from Ireland. Again, that's a big difference between aggressive and assured, and it's about sort of trying to find the happy medium there.
We have 2 pairs of tickets to give away to the match tonight. For your chance to win, answer this question. Republic of Ireland beat Switzerland 1-0 in a friendly game in March 2016. Who scored the goal for Ireland? Text your name and answer to 53106 for 30 cents, and you could be at the Aviva Stadium on Thursday night. Would you take a draw?
I think, as I said, a full time on Thursday night, you wouldn't be unhappy with a draw. But that keeps you in the race. That's fine. But that means that you have to win against Switzerland away or Denmark at home. So if you think a draw is okay, well, then you have to be thinking that Ireland can win one of those 2 games. That's the price. You think, okay, maybe Switzerland are the strongest team in the group. Maybe they're stronger than Denmark. In which case, a draw against Switzerland is grand, but you have to beat Denmark at home. And the Swiss were 3-0 up against Denmark with 6 minutes to go in March. Now, they capitulated, but they got themselves into a position where they were 3-0 up, which would make you think that the team that got 3-0 ahead is, on 84 minutes worth of a performance, they were in front. So you think that, are they the strongest side? Their recent track record is probably a bit stronger. So with 2 teams going through automatically, if you think you can take down the Danes, then maybe a draw is fine against the Swiss. Maybe it is, but I think if you have that bit of weakness with Shaqiri, I don't think you can enter the game with that mindset. I don't think that Ireland will. But sometimes those habits can creep in. If it's 20 minutes to go and it's tight, what happens then?
Just to mention the fact that obviously against Georgia there was a bit of a protest. Are we expecting anything from the fans in the game, or are we just?
Well, I don't know.
Expectation that they'll just focus on the 90 minutes.
I think the tennis ball thing that happened, it wasn't necessarily from organised fans groups that came from. I think some people went their own way.
A lot of tennis balls.
I think some people. Cardi was like yesterday was only 40. I thought it was more than 40.
Looked like more.
I thought it was more than 40, but I don't really want to get into a video analysis of counting the tennis balls. But I think it would probably be a surprise if the evening passed by without some kind of gesture, of some kind. I think there's a lot of support or unhappiness there with a lot of what's happened, and I think that the FAI are probably aware of that, and I think they've probably made attempts to speak with fans and maybe get a handle on what might happen. But will there be banners? Will there be chants? I'd say it's a very strong chance that there would be. I don't necessarily agree with the view that you can just suspend your thoughts on that for the evening. It is a high profile window to make a point, and once it doesn't affect the game in such a way that it's a massive stoppage or something that is going to pose a suspension of the game style problem. I think if people, this is a serious business, and I don't think that I don't think that all of a sudden this line that now isn't the right forum to do it. This is the forum when everyone's tuned in, and too often over the years the relationship between the attitude around the FAI and the Irish football team and the international team is that, once the senior team is doing okay, then nothing else matters. But if the senior team are playing, maybe anyone who thinks in that mindset, they need to be reminded of, now there's other stuff going on here. It's a balancing act. It's about how, do I think it would be inappropriate? No, I don't think it'd be inappropriate at all.
What game are you looking forward to more, Thursday nights or Friday nights under 21 game?
No, I'm still looking forward to Thursday's a big match in Dublin. So like I know where you're going with this. You know, I mean, I would make the point about the 21s. It's really interesting. Like it's genuinely very interesting. But it's still a game against Armenia on Friday night. It's the magnitude of it is lessened. You know, I'm glad that Troy Parrott is here. You know, I'm glad that some of the promising young players, Aaron Connolly, like they're actually here. I mean, Obafemi is out. Like I was worried that you might lose a couple more. Nathan Collins is available, which is unavailable. Sorry, which is a bit of a disappointment. So no, you're allowed to look forward to both. You know, without picking. But I think what was interesting last week, it was that, and I've read this point in paper a few times, that people were talking. They were talking more about the 21s. That part of that is because people always love something that's new and exciting. In the same way that, like, fans of a club, they naturally are more interested by the young players or the new signings than the tried and trusted lads that have been around forever, that sort of got taken for granted. But it is true that you do look at that under 21 list and you look at the profile of some of the players that, yeah, you want to see them play, but like, you still don't take your eye off the ball and think how good it could be to be involved in a tournament next summer where the games are taking place in Dublin, and Thursday is one of the 4 games that will determine whether Ireland do that. So I'd rather that in our lives next summer than not.
We do have live coverage from the game, and Nathan will be joined by David Myler, who obviously announced his retirement there in the past week. What's your prediction? I'm going to go for 1-1.
But 1-1 is always a safe prediction about an Ireland one. Like I'd say if you've gone with 1-1 for every Ireland Switzerland game over here, you'd be on plus pointed. You know, the sort of the punter parlance. You know, to a level stake, I'd say you'd probably be in a good position. I think that's realistic. I still don't think like we have the evidence. As much as I thought Ireland were good against Georgia, I still don't think we have the evidence from the games, you know, across the year that Ireland can suddenly go out there and beat Switzerland. I think they need to find another level, and you hope that they do, but I think that's probably a more realistic outcome.
And our football coverage is brought to you with thanks to Paddy Power. For information on responsible gambling, visit dunlewy.net. It's Stuey Byrne next.
Football on Off the Ball
with Paddy Power, returning football shirts to the fans. Join the movement today by using #SaveOurShirt.
News Talk Breakfast.
The prorogation of Parliament, combined with the threat not to enact a law that MPs are preparing right now, this is a declaration of war.
Deal or no deal, a day of high drama in Westminster. I'll be getting all the news and analysis live from London and bringing it to you in the morning.
I'll be in Dublin with all the goings on this side of the Irish Sea.
News Talk Breakfast with Shane Coleman and Kieran Cuddihy.
In association with Air.
Tomorrow from 7 on News Talk.
Air France.
La France.
is in the air.
With our new Oh La La deals, you don't just have to imagine. You can go deepwater diving in Punta Cana, shop in luxurious Dubai, or stroll the not-so-forbidden city in Beijing. Oh la la! You can afford to let your imagination fly far, far away.
Air France.
La France.
is in the air.
Book your flights via Paris by the 12th of September at airfrance.ie.
EirGrid manages and develops the national electricity grid. You could say it's the heartbeat of Ireland, keeping our country's energy flowing from head to toe across the land, so that everyone has power when and where they need it. Because no matter who your electricity supplier is, it's the power of the grid that keeps our farms and businesses running and our homes warm and bright, now and into the future, without missing a beat. EirGrid, the current, the future.
Football Index, the football stock market.
Remember that first time on the terraces, where it all began. The heroes, the villains, the highs, the lows. All the while, you were learning. Now use that knowledge on Football Index. Join tens of thousands of fans trading the world's top players. Football Index, the game changed. App available, 18 plus, terms and conditions apply, gamble responsibly.
You start off as a nervous marketing intern. You find your feet, and a few hundred meetings, spreadsheets, late nights and promotions later, then it's on to assistant brand manager. You hone your skills and build your name, and then it's brand manager, senior brand manager and head of brand, and then, after years of hard work, you finally earn the title of Chief Marketing Officer. Looking for a way to fast forward your career? Core Learning offers a range of practical marketing courses led by industry-leading professionals. CoreLearning.ie, because knowledge is power.
The rain lads. Can you hear it? Tumbling down on your almost dry clothesline. Oh, the summer's over all right. But it's not all doom and gloom, because prices are also tumbling down on dryers at Appliances Delivered. This week only, we're offering 10% off all tumble dryers over $399 with nationwide delivery and flexible payment options. Just use the code TUMBLE10 and sure every day will be a grand day for the drying. This week only at appliancesdelivered.ie.
Our business needs vans, lots of vans, and Europcar meets our day-to-day needs all across the country, providing our company with the ideal selection of small, medium or large vans and trucks, and even bespoke commercial vehicles delivered directly to our premises.
From our 22 nationwide locations, Europcar supplies Irish businesses with an unrivaled range of vans, 4x4 pickups, 4-seater commercial SUVs and double cab tippers. With 9,000 vehicles in our fleet, there's no demand we can't fulfill. Europcar, moving your way.
Have a great evening with itsforwomen.ie. Don't live your life on hold. Get a quote now at itsforwomen.ie and see why we're trusted by over 130,000 women in Ireland.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
That is Drowning the Stream, the new single from Stuey Byrne, that is.
What do you think, John?
Very dark album cover. It's like a guy in a silhouetted hoodie looking out onto the shore, like very close to the cliff's edge.
Well, dark can be good. Well, dark suits.
I like dark music, but this looks quite dark. What
do you think of the actual music? Like,
very 80s.
Like, I don't think he wants the album cover sort of analysed initially.
Album cover, don't judge an album by
People
its
listen to
cover.
the music here now going, what's the think of the music,
I
John?
want to know about the album cover.
So the album cover, it's a single cover, it's not the album cover.
Single cover,
so
excuse me.
It's sort of depicts the tone of the track.
Which is
quite a dark track.
It's dark. I like dark music.
Yeah.
It can be very uplifting.
Yeah.
Bad music is depressing.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I mean, dark is good. It's probably this particular song is probably. I was talking to Dan earlier about it. It's kind of signalled a bit of a sea change in the sound that I'm going for. So there'll be a bit of a shift. I think anything that's come up to now will be slightly different, but from now on, it'll be a bit of a different sound. Like, you know, just through the sheer process of doing songs and recording and you know, seeing what works, what you like, what suits your voice. All that kind of stuff. Like, I'm totally naive to this whole process. Like,
well, you learn on the job.
You learn on the job, yeah, and it's good. Like, you know, it's good to you know, you make mistakes. The best way to learn is to make mistakes. You know.
Stephen O'Donnell going to learn on the job.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I think. Nice switch, by the way.
Almost too thick. I was like, we're going to break down his tune. I love that sort of 80s vibe off it, actually. I'm not sure, do you find that insulting or a compliment, though?
No, I don't. No. No. I've worked quite hard on the sound, so no, I'm not going to apologise for the
It has
sound
that sort of timeless quality. Like, you know, sometimes you hear a song that's like, I know roughly what year that might be from. Do you know what I mean?
It's timeless, but it sounds like it's in the 80s.
Well, that's a good point. But it's not like, when you think about it, it's actually, I'm talking rubbish, to be fair. But
no, I kind of know what you mean.
I mean,
if it weren't the 80s, it's aged very well.
It's deceptive. Like, you think you might think it's from a particular time or something, but actually it's not. If I'd heard that and someone said to me that was 2019, you'd be like, really? Like, I'd be shocked by that. So
you expect footballers to be shit singers. Stuey is not.
Well, that's another thing as well. But I mean, he's not just a singer being rolled out to do a charity record. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, he's actually producing this himself. Now, I'm sure he'd be very good at that. You know, you did a whole Live Aid with the hands to the earpieces and, like, you know, and sort of get it together. You could get it
raising money for the League of Ireland.
Get the whole Shells team together, like, in a sort of a, you know, the greatest gift they'll get this year.
You could have done that back in the day when Shells were in the Stuck. You could have raised money through putting a bit of a Live Aid type song together.
Well, do you know what? Funny you should say that, right? I mean, like, I don't know where this will go. I hope it goes somewhere. You know, I'm really enjoying it at the moment, and the songs are just sort of pouring out of me. And I'm quite excited at the moment because of this track and the new sound and how everything is sort of evolving. But it did get me thinking. I love to get the support of the football community because I think I can give a lot back as well. Now, what that is, I don't know, but they both work together, like, you know. So who knows? Maybe we can get something going in Talca Park, a gig next summer.
What have they made of it, your ex-teammates?
They like it, yeah, but I haven't spoken to many people. But I pretty much had my head buried for the last 4 or 5 months.
Is this all you're doing, or are you doing any other? Are you doing day-to-day work?
Oh, I do day-to-day work.
Yeah. So this is your evening.
This is my evening, my weekends. Yeah, pretty much. It's been an obsession for the last 3 years. Like it's 3 years in the writing, really. Like, you know.
I gotta laud you. Some players, you know, become managers. Some players obviously try to.
Yeah, it wasn't for me. That wasn't for me. This has been something that sort of I've been doing since I was 18, 19, like, you know, and it's just been buried there, like, and it just happens the way it happened, like, you know. So, like, I've been buried in the sand. I haven't really been, you know, I've been focusing on this, and I'm totally focused on getting it finished. And I only joined Twitter 2 months ago, like, you know, kind of because I have to, but
self-promotion,
social media stuff, I just can't. I really struggle with, like, you know, really
it's part of the game now for anyone starting off, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm kind of glad I struggle a bit because I'd be worried if I got too obsessed by it. I don't think it's a good place to go, really.
Well, it's a load of crap, but it'd be hard.
The importance of it, but it's the only way you can really tell people what's going on. Like,
you were looking at Wes Houlihan on a boat earlier on. It's like social media tangent because we
have to have a look at this. If people haven't seen this, Wes put up a story on Instagram. Match day, they're going to match, and it's like they're going to their match, and
he's in Australia now. Just if people aren't aware, he's
well, I think you'll gather that now from the little short video. But it's like something of Miami Vice, you know. It's just missing that Miami Vice music.
Could Stewie perhaps record the official track for us if we make it to Euro 2020?
I'd love to.
What's Stewie's favourite football song?
Favourite football song? Oh,
World in Motion. I can hear a bit of New Order in his songs from Mark. Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah. Played in Dublin a couple of months ago.
New Order are brilliant. Yeah, I wasn't.
Maybe one day you could.
I'm very put them under pressure now. Probably would be
just for the nostalgia and all that.
Yeah.
When you were playing, did you, particularly I guess in the Shell days, did you play music in the dressing room for games?
We did. Yeah, I'd pick the music because I'd be one for picking the music. Yeah, myself and Alan Moore would get involved as well. Actually, yeah. But. I brought the guitar to a few pre-season things. Didn't do that too much because I sort of said this before. I'm not one of these guys that goes into a room and goes, "I give us that guitar and I'll start."
Or Andy Reid comes to mind.
I can't do that. Like, you know, I can't. I find it quite difficult to play other people's songs. It's really weird. It's like that's their song. I don't really want to.
It's more of a personal thing for you.
Yeah, I tend to kind of want to write my own. So, but I have a few in the locker in case.
First time I've met you, Stewie. You're not your average football personality.
Yeah,
which is a good thing, probably.
That's a good thing, yeah.
Stephen O'Donnell. Let's get to the. Let's cut to the chase. Didn't really expect this. Didn't expect it to happen. Dan made a good point on Saturday's show where he's like, if I'm giving out about Lampard and Solskjaer getting jobs on the basis of what they've done, how can you give Stephen O'Donnell a job on the basis of what he's done?
Well, I was saying, how can you defend it, John?
How do you give him a job?
I can see why he's got the job. But
it's a gamble.
How can you give him a job? Well, I think any manager's a gamble now. Like, any manager's a gamble now. How could you know Keith Long would have done as well as what he did at Bowes?
But he had a bit of a track record, to be fair. Like,
yeah, but like any manager is a gamble. But I totally agree. You know, when you go for a young manager, it's probably a little bit more of a higher risk. However, when you look at who they're bringing in Stevie, who's come from Dundalk, one of the most successful clubs we've ever had in the League of Ireland. But look at what they've achieved in the last 5 or 6 years. He's got all that knowledge. He's bringing all that to Pats. They're going to say, what do you do here? What do you do there? I would imagine that's the point of all this. And I think it's a great move for Pats.
You do think it's a great move?
For the club. For the club. And I sort of would have reiterated this quite a lot over the years. I think Pats are a little bit lost at the moment as a club. You know, don't really know where they are, where they're going. There's an awful lot of talk about the ground and that kind of stuff going on. Like, you know, and I think when you look at the comparison between themselves and Bowes, okay, two good comparison to have, and both on two completely different levels at the moment. Like, you know, first of all, you've got a young team at Bowes who are playing some super stuff. some really exciting players.
And they're hip and they're trendy.
But they are, yeah. But they've worked so well on the game, the match day experience, like
in the community.
In the community, they're like two different clubs. Yet when you look at the table, they're not a million miles. I couldn't believe this when I had a look at the table yesterday. Pats are only a win away from. They're probably 6 points off Bohs at the moment with a game in hand. They win that game in hand, all of a sudden they're within grasp of third, and think of the perception of both clubs, completely different, and the reason I feel that this young Bohs team are doing as well as they're doing at the moment, Keith's getting a tune out of them, obviously, but I think it's just the whole general atmosphere in the club. The players are responding to it, and they're just bouncing off that sort of energy.
Yeah,
and
they have
it's just
to.
working.
They have to have a bit of an identity, Bose, though. I think. I think they have a bit of an identity in every sense. Also in terms of how they play sometimes too. And Pats are a full-time club, but you don't necessarily always think of them in that context, if you know what I mean. Like they have a full-time playing staff now, having sort of actually gone back part-time, and then they've sort of stepped it up again in terms of they did recruit heavily over the winter. They competed for players that other clubs wanted, Drennan and Reece McCabe, and they got Forrester home. And
you mentioned 3 players there. Their signings haven't worked out.
No.
Granted, some people say Harry Kenny, he's not really a coach. He's more of a kind of a man-manager type player. But you listed 3 players there, collectively have been an absolute flop.
Yeah, flop's a bit strong. I think with regard to Drennan, I think it's a bit strong, but I think
Drennan scored.
No,
he hasn't scored about 12.
He's dropped off. I think with the other 2, it's fair. I just think that I think the point about the Dundalk mentality and culture and whatever, I think that is big, because I think O'Donnell's been integral to that. I think the Dundalk are going to miss him. I think they're going to miss having him around the club. As much as he wasn't he was an opposition analyst, he was still there a couple of days a week. And I think that Dundalk just can't lose too many of even if they're not playing. Even the likes of Gartland, okay, Massey is playing, but you'd know from being involved of a dynasty, a sort of a Shells team that had success over a period of time, that there's certain principles that are there, and there's certain attitudes that are there, and they still have that with Vinny and Rory Higgins and people who've been there, but you can't lose too many of them, because I get the impression that the likes of Dundalk have set a standard, and you just hear a bit of chat that I think they might look sometimes at some of the other maybe full-time clubs and wonder really about their mindset. I don't want to be wrong about this, but I'd say, in the mid-season break here, Dundalk didn't really have a break, did a couple of days off. I think other clubs, full-time clubs, it's a bit different. They actually have a break. They have a bit of a what was their preparation for Europe like? I would have the feeling that Dundalk's preparation would have been miles ahead of what Pat Say would have done for Europe this year. And you look at players there who probably aren't as fit as they should be. I don't think you would have accused anyone. Dundalk have had 1 or 2 players that didn't work out with for whatever reason, but generally you would never have questioned them. So
you think some of the Pat's players aren't in the shape they should be?
I just think I'm not sure if is there a full-time ethos really at the club.
And Gareth Kelleher's put in the money, Stewie, so there isn't an excuse.
I had to give him credit that Gareth. I mean, when you look at all the football clubs that have gone through financial disaster in 15, 20 years, Pats have always been in good shape. So Gareth, in fairness, has always kept them above water, but it's a player thing. It's a mentality amongst players, you have to. It has to be driven by players. A manager can only bring you so far. The players have to buy into what's been asked of them at the football club. Stevie O'Donnell was integral to that at Dundalk. Probably started it off.
Yeah, I'm not sure Pats are kind of awash with leaders on the pitch to kind of drive that either.
Yeah, no, that's completely agree, and I agree with it. The signings haven't worked out for one reason or another.
And you can see why they were good signings, but they haven't worked out.
Yeah, and there's been a few bob spent, but even I even personally, I had a brief spell there at Pats, and I always felt like there's just that detachment there between the crowd. The crowd can get very negative very, very quickly, and they've a right to be quite negative very, very quickly. They've come from a place where I always look. My memory of Pats are the Pat Dolan years, when Pat Dolan was there at the football club.
There was some buzz there.
He ran the club. He didn't just look after the football team. He ran the football club. He was out and about getting sponsorship, galvanising the supporters, getting them going. You know, he was constantly winding them up. He'd be in the paper, like, you know, and everybody bought into this, like, you know. And since he's gone, they've just lacked that spark.
That's the thing as well, Dan. With you know, people say there are too many clubs in Dublin, but Pats have a massive catchment area there for people who should, like, and Inchicore is actually a lovely place to go and watch a game. Good bars in the area. It just doesn't seem like they've really tapped into that.
No, like there's a few complications, you know, and I do think the issue with the ground is a valid one, you know. Like, I mean, Bows, you mentioned, like, you know, Bows' identity. Well, Bows still have managed to galvanise themselves in the area. Match night, they have bars, they have stuff there. Pats don't really have that, you know. Pats, I mean, you know, they're training out in Selbridge. I think this year they've changed training ground from being out in Alsa before, neither of which are anywhere really near, you know, the ground or you know, just having a sort of a complex or a place that they can really call their home. And I know that might sound rubbish, and you will say that it's driven by the players, but I think, like, there has to be, like, Shamrock Rovers have Roadstone now, like, the Dog have their training facility. Much of the ground is a disaster, but the actual training facilities where people go every day. And I just think, like, I don't know, Pats have just drifted a bit over the last couple of years. I think that's why, like, the Richmond Arena idea was about trying to somehow get things going again and make a facility or something, because they are, like, when the new Daily Mount happens, which you hope that it does happen, like, that's obviously going to have Bows in a strong place. Obviously you'll have views and maybe where Shells lie within that. Rovers are very distinct in terms of their identity now. Pats have to find out where they are, and you can't just be a club that's just a load of full-time players. It needs to be more than that, and it is true, like, Keller has put in a lot of money to that club, and I'm not sure, like, if it's the fault of any one person here. It's just that they don't have the ingredients there. I mean, at the start of the year, people were talking about them as league challengers, John. I think we had a chat about it. Like they don't have, they didn't have. You're looking at where the character was there to drive that. The problem that Stephen O'Donnell might have is that what Stephen O'Donnell might really need is Stephen O'Donnell, you know, to play, you know, to be in his dressing room, and, like, he might have the ideas and he might have the, you know, the philosophy and a way of playing and a way of conducting yourself and so on in mind, but he may have players there on contracts that he's inherited that he can't shift out.
I'd be shocked, Dan, if part of the negotiation for Steve to go in there was that the club have to sort of meet certain requests that he would have outside of just the football pitch. Like,
there's no way he'd go in there without.
No way he'd go in there. Like, training ground, what's happening, you know, infrastructure, these kind of things. Like, you know, it just got me thinking there, because when I think back to Pats, like, you know, and you look at the two real successful managers that, in my opinion, that have been there, would be Pat Dolan and then, of course, Brian Kerr, like, you know. And I remember being a schoolboy playing out in Richmond when they had built that new stand. They were probably one of the first clubs to kind of really change that sort of towards a kind of professional mentality, like the huge dressing rooms. The stand looked fantastic. This is back when I was 16. You know, and I think Brian had a huge part of that. So what that tells me is, don't underestimate the role of the manager in not just what the team does, but what the club is doing. You know,
absolutely.
You think of all the, like, Pat Fenlon at Shells, Stephen Kenny at Dundalk, Michael O'Neill at Shamrock Rovers. They sort of, you have to grab the football club by the scruff of the neck, you know, and push it forward.
Before we do wrap up, Cork City, you know,
I'm quite shocked at this now, to be honest.
Now, I've kind of been having a bit of a chat with Dan about the possibility that they would get dragged into it. They're still 7 ahead of Finn Harps, but their form is absolutely pants at the moment. I saw them in Galway recently. They were atrocious, didn't have a shot on target. Getting a little bit worried, Dan. I mean, they lose at home to Waterford.
The home record is unbelievable.
They won 2 games all season.
It's unbelievable for a Cork City team. And, like, in fairness, like, the crowds haven't really, like, you know, it's not as if the crowds have gone off a cliff, or even, I don't know, I don't get a sense that it's been madly hostile or toxic at games, you know, but they've just, I mean, look, Neil Fenn's come in and, you know, you're not going to judge him and Anthony, it's really happened, but at the same time, the team, like, you know, I read reports, well, they've seen some nice football played in the games, but again, you go back to, like, mentality and attitude. It's a Cork City team, like, you know, they shouldn't be losing games in the manner that they are. Even with a new manager in last night, there's this new manager bounce, and they're 1-up at home to Waterford and they lose 2-1. Like, that's weak. You know, like that's a real.
Oh yeah,
that's a problem.
There's a real mentality problem.
I think they'll be fine. I still think they have enough.
7 points.
I still think they have enough. There's like 6 games to go or whatever. You know, I think that they'll be fine.
I prefer.
But I mean, what is fine? Like I mean, like that's a horrendous discussion to have. That like it's like saying, you know, it's like saying Liverpool are grand if they finish 16th or something. Do you know, like that's it's not good. It might get them through the season, but
in some respects, I prefer the Pats job than the Cork job at the moment, if that makes sense. Even though the Cork job should be bigger.
Oh God, I don't think a lot of managers would say that now. Like, you know,
yeah, well,
the Cork. I mean, that's a one city football club. Everything at their disposal.
It's a great job.
It's a fantastic job. I mean, I as a player, probably definitely one of the top 3 grounds in the country to play in.
Fantastic ground.
Hell of a ground to play in, like, you know. I just hope Fenny doesn't panic a little bit. I hope this experience at Longford doesn't press the alarm bells, but like you would have thought Cork were putting them in there because they had 2 home games in a row. They were probably hoping for 6 points.
A bit of a bounce.
And they're all of a sudden they're on a bit of a run, and it's gone the other way. I can't really put my finger. The only thing I can say is, and I'm on record as saying, is that I just felt Cork were getting away with it last year. They were boxing way above their weight last year.
You have to kind of laud John Caulfield.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, I mean, whether or not he was creating the problems for future, or whether he was sort of filling in the cracks, very difficult to know. You'd have to be in and around the dressing room to know what the players are like down there, like, you know.
But before we wrap up, are your songs like the sort of, you know, would they have the vibe that would actually kind of inspire you going out in the pitch, or would you be like kind of hating life, or, you know?
No,
they would be a positive.
They would be, yeah.
Give us a plug for the impending album.
So I'm hoping to have an album. The album will be called Maybe Not Today. I'm hoping to have it finished by late October, early November.
Want to pick one up, Dan?
We'll go from there.
Yeah, maybe not today. Is that a tribute to like Shell's telling you when you're going to be paid?
maybe not today is actually probably more a tribute to me and going into the music career. Like, you know, I just kept going, well, maybe not today, maybe not today.
Well, it's worked out. It's worked out. You got there in the end. You know?
Thanks for listening, lads. We'll be back after these.
Tech.ie. That's KITCH Tech.ie.
The rain, lads! Can you hear it? Tumbling down on your almost